Right, shall we crack on? You able to crack on? Yeah, let's go for it. We've got a bit of an introduction anyway, so anyone that hasn't jumped in yet, we've got loads of people on the call, but anyone that hasn't jumped in yet, we'll be able to catch up. We're just going to go through a bit of an intro. So I'll start us off before I hand you over to Lisa. So first of all, welcome to Lunch and Learn. This is an event we run every single month, and it's our way of giving back to the local business community, local, far away, wherever you're based. We like to invite business owners and marketeers into our monthly webinar and just talk about our expertise around a certain subject. We're a marketing agency. This is what we do. We run social campaigns, we run ad campaigns, we're specialists in SEO, and we build websites. So we like to give something back. This is a totally free webinar with a slight caveat, but I'll come on to that in a second. This is a totally free webinar, and like I said, it's our way of giving back. Now, I'm Dave. I set up 146 almost 12 years ago now, and we're based here in Northamptonshire. We do a lot of local work, but we've got clients dotted around the country as well. So if you're not necessarily local and you did want to speak to us about maybe even running your Instagram or carrying out some sort of project work for you, please reach out to us after the event, and we can have a chat. I'm going to pass you over to Lisa to introduce herself.
Hi, so my name's Lisa. I obviously work for 146 through managing some of our clients through social media management, but I also run Northants Life. We're a online publication, and you'll find everything for what's on, where to go, and everything good and positive in Northamptonshire. So I've been dabbling in Instagram for as long as I can remember, and I've been hosting these kind of webinars mostly during the pandemic, to be fair, helping businesses make the best use of Instagram. I helped a local charity with raising funds by doing these kind of webinars, and it was really well received. It really helped businesses take it to that next level, and sometimes it's the smallest things that you don't realize that you're not doing more so than what you should be doing. So hopefully this webinar gives you some insight into what's going on at the moment, because even back from 2020 to now, loads of things have changed. So hopefully this will help give you an insight into running your brand, not just creating content, but actually running your brand and getting it noticed on Instagram. So hopefully you find this all helpful.
Thank you. And if I say anything during this webinar that contradicts what Lisa says, I would generally go with what Lisa said, because I generally get told off for the stuff I do on Instagram. However, I'm getting better, aren't I? Yeah. She says yes in the background. Right, as I said, there's a very slight caveat to me saying it's free. This is a totally free webinar, by the way, but we do like to support a local charity here called Cynthia Hospice. It's a charity we've supported for a number of years now. So at the end of the webinar, you will get on email a link to a Just Giving page. If you wanted to, there's no checking, you don't have to, but if you wanted to donate what you felt was a ticket fee of £1, £5, £10, whatever you wanted, like I said, there's no need to do that if you don't want to, then feel free to donate on our Just Giving page, and that will go straight through to Cynthia Hospice. But as I said, totally free today. Hopefully you get something from it. My aim with all of these Lunch and Learns is that everyone goes away with at least one thing that they can implement within their own business. Hopefully you get more than that, but if you get one, then we've done our job right. So today we're going to be talking about how to run a brand on Instagram. We're going to be looking into all different parts of running, managing, building a brand on Instagram. Some of the stuff, as I said, you may have come across in the past. Hopefully you'll get some take homes. Now, Lisa is going to lead today. I'm going to sit in the background and chip in whenever I feel like I want to. So I'm going to hand you over to Lisa. I'm going to let her run with things. Now, please just bear in mind, I'm the one controlling PowerPoint. Lisa's across the other side of the office. So if we're slightly out of sync, that's why, but we'll try and keep up. Over to you, Lisa.
Right, so we wanted to talk about running a brand on Instagram today from a perspective of how to run the community, how to run your profile, and get yourself to a point where you know that people will recognize your brand. Obviously, I'm guessing most of the people actually on this call probably have an Instagram or are thinking about getting an Instagram for their business, and it's trying to get it to that next level. It's trying to beat the algorithm. It's trying to make it work, because you're just constantly battling against Instagram, and we find it too. But the best thing you can do with any platform is keep persevering, because Instagram, for all its faults in terms of trying to keep up with the engagement levels, it is a great tool for businesses to use. Some people literally run a whole business through Instagram. So there are plenty of opportunities for you to enjoy it and make the best use of it. And as I always say with any platform, you need to enjoy using it, otherwise it's not worth having, because it really does come across. So if Dave could take us to the first slide. So as I say, you've got to love it, but firstly, you also need to understand who your audience is, because if you don't know who you're actually creating the content for, then you're just going to be basically a shot in the dark with your content, and nothing's really going to make much sense. You need to have a look at your analytics and see who is actually looking at your page, but also you need to have a look at who your sales targets are, because obviously you'll know those through your own business. And if you don't, then obviously speak to people within the business that will know those facts. And then you can start to align that content to meet the people and meet that demand. Within the analytics of Instagram, which we can go through kind of at the end, I can show you it almost as a walkthrough. You'll find the details about your audience, and they will say female, male. It will give a rough age group, and obviously these things are almost subjective to what people use on their profiles, but it gives you a slight understanding of who is looking at your profile. And so you can tailor that content, because if you find, I don't know, somehow that you're reaching more 65-year-olds than anything else, then maybe you either need to tailor it to just those people, or you need to make a shift so that your content reaches the people that you need for it to reach. So that's the most important step to begin with. On to the next slide.
Do you mind if I add something in there quickly?
Oh yeah,
Lisa?
go for it.
One of the things I think is absolutely crucial with social media generally, not just Instagram. We've got a lot of businesses on this call today, and you're all probably thinking, how can I better run my Instagram profile for my business? All I'm going to say is, when we talk about understanding your audience, Lisa's absolutely spot on there, but I want to come at it from a slightly different angle. Just because you're on this call today doesn't mean that Instagram is going to work for you as a business and a brand. It doesn't mean that it won't, but I'm saying it doesn't mean that it will. B2B businesses are more kind of prone to this. I guess what I'm trying to say is you don't have to operate everywhere. You don't have to operate on every single platform. And if Instagram doesn't hold your target audience, once you understand what that target audience is, don't think that you have to force it. Instagram might not be for you, but hopefully once you understand that, you'll understand that Instagram, is something you can utilize, and obviously the stuff that precedes this slide will be of use. So I just want to add that. I'm going to shoot over to the next slide, Lisa.
So to make sure that people actually understand what it is that you do, it's about optimizing your profile. So what we mean by this is having a look at what your profile says. If people land straight on your page, is it obvious what you do? Does it actually say in black and white who you are, what you do, and doesn't just sort of have a vague sentence? What I mean by this is, similarly on LinkedIn, some people will just put, like myself, editor of Northants Live, whereas some people will put a statement that's more like, I help businesses get noticed. So have a think about what works best for you. Will this help people understand with Instagram? Exactly, as soon as they land on your page, is it obvious? And it's including all the contacts options. It's including a web link, because you can only have the one web link, which we'll go into. It's having a look at how it actually comes across to the viewer. So as you can see with the Northants Life page, we've set it up so it's very obvious. The online publication for Northamptonshire, you can't get more specific than that. We say that we're web, social, email, and we're using emojis to help highlight these points. It's almost using the emoji as a bullet point and helping the emojis to tell the story, because we're using the envelope as a suggestion that it's email and online. It's the globe because it's talking about what's on, and the camera because we want people to use photos. It seems really obvious to say these things, but some people miss this bit and just put a sentence that, one, it looks boring, and two, it just doesn't help people understand, because visual helps people get that message across. So have a look at how your profile appears, and maybe get a few people to view it from an impartial perspective, because we all get a bit blind to what we already see, and you want your page to come across that when you land on it, it's really obvious. And maybe ask a few people, can you tell what we do from landing on our page? And even with the settings in Instagram, where it says magazine, you can actually choose a subject title here that matches your business. So make sure all of these parts are filled out. It's really easy to forget, especially when you set it up maybe a few years ago, you've taken on from someone else. Just make sure that all these details are filled in, because it really does help people look at your profile. And it's a bit like a website. You want people to understand what it is that you do from the get-go. And this is your one opportunity. If your profile looks rubbish, they're going to walk away. So have a think about how it actually looks to the viewer. On to the next one, please, Dave.
So this is an example, a local company, Brooklyn Brownie Co.
I've heard of them if you're from Northamptonshire. Fantastic business. And again, a great example of showing exactly what it is they do. They're a dessert shop. They're run by dad and son. Mail order, Uber Eats, Northampton, and then a bit about their business as well. And then, as you can see, they've got their highlights filled in as well, which is almost a subject for another day, but something to look into. This just, I feel like it does exactly what it says on the tin, and you know exactly what you're getting yourself in for. So just make sure that that is actually something that your profile shows, because it's really easy to forget.
One thing you've mentioned already, Lisa, is about having a link. If I just skip back, we'll look at the Northampton Life link here. And it's / we've got northamptonlife.co.uk/Instagram links. Now, the challenge with Instagram is you can't, within the posts, put a link. It doesn't show up as an actual link, as a clickable link. You can within stories now. So what we try to do is we have a link that holds all of our links within Instagram. Now you can utilize something called Linktree. There's loads of people have heard about Linktree, and you can sign up for a free account. And what it essentially does is you click on that link and it adds loads of other links that you can fire off to other parts of your website. Because when you're sharing stuff on Instagram, you might not just want to link through to the homepage on your website all the time. You might want to link through to various areas. But what we recommend you do, if possible, so this is ours for Northampton Life, we recommend that you set up a separate page on your own website. Ask your developers to do it. We've just done it for one of our customers. It's very easy and simple to do, rather than using Linktree, and add in the links there. So we've got buttons here: advertise with us, half term at Rushton Lakes, Ripples opens a new showroom in Tota. So all of the things we're sharing, we can then just say, visit the link in our bio to view the article, and they click on that. This pops up and they can go to the exact article rather than having to hunt around the website. It aids user experience. So if you want a free version, there is Linktree, or ask your developers to put it on your website. There are benefits to having it on your website because you're pushing traffic through to your site, so you can monitor that better. You can also potentially remarket to that. So it is better to have people going straight through to your website if possible. But worst case scenario, use something called Linktree. Right, I'm going to flick through to the next. Was there anything else you want to cover on there?
I just wanted to add as well, something that kind of is my biggest bugbear with Instagram is putting in captain's day set. You can't do it, you can't click on it. There's no way to actually make that link happen. And you can't put it in the comments either. Nothing will happen. Copy and paste doesn't work on Instagram. So always remember that, because it looks unprofessional if it's in there. So just try and remember to always send people to the link in your bio, because it just won't work as a link. And it adds that professional image and just makes your profile look better. And as a brand, it's exactly what you want to do. You want to give that top-notch quality, basically.
But you can do it in stories. There's now a link button in stories. If you click on the sticker icon, if you're using stories, we're going to come on to stories shortly. You can click on sticker icon, you've got a link, you can put in the URL, and you can actually change the call to action. So if you saw the 146 Instagrams earlier, you'll have seen that I did a story and on it I put the sticker and I said book now, or book your place now. I can't remember what I put. Straight through to the Lunch and Learn page. So you can do it on stories, you can't do it on posts. That's key to remember. Right, let's skip on.
So as we just mentioned, stories, this is even more apt. Stories are the best way for your business to get seen from a whole new perspective. The best way to treat stories is everything else that wouldn't appear on the grid. So your grid photos, your profile, the posts that you upload should be the most polished, perfect images you can find to upload. Try and always make sure that these are great pieces of content that you're happy with. There's no clutter, that they're the best, sharpest image in terms of the photography, the composition's nice, and you're happy for them to go out. Your stories are the opportunity to share what's going on in the business. They're the chance to share products. They're a great way to keep a constant feed, because obviously you might not want to post on Instagram every day. You might post maybe 4 times a week. A lot of people will say, how many times should we post on Instagram? Some people do once a day. I would never suggest more than once a day in terms of your grid post, but I would say once a day minimum, or maximum, sorry, and then try and think about using your stories daily. And it shouldn't just be one a day, it should be consistent stories every day. There's plenty of opportunities to use stories. It can be simple things like around your office, around the business, behind the scenes of things being made, of things being created, people out at work. It could be little interviews, it could be anything that shows your business in a whole new perspective, because it allows people to buy from the people that they're seeing. It allows people to see products. If you look at sort of the big brands, maybe even you think about fashion brands, they don't show the people behind the business, but they tend to show what's going on. They show the products, they show different stock imagery, and it just allows you to have way more content going out than just the one photo going out on your grid posts. So have a little bit of a think of how you can be more consistent with these. They last for 24 hours and then it's on to the next one. So once you post one, that has a 24-hour shelf life, and then again. So have a think about how you can actually start using stories a lot more. If you have an iPhone, you can take a photo. You have an Android, you can take a photo. If you've got a camera, use it. It doesn't have to be the best quality in the world to go on stories. Obviously, I would suggest it being so, but you can also make templates in things like Canva or Illustrator so that they look polished, and it doesn't actually have to have a photo as such from your phone. It can have other imagery from your shops, from your businesses, or even just ways to add the stickers on. As Dave mentioned earlier, Instagram now allows everyone, there's no follower count limit, everyone to have the sticker option. So you'll post your portrait, always make sure it's portrait so it fills the screen, and then you can add in a sticker and you can place that around the screen wherever you like. And that allows you to then send people to your website. It can be a specific product page, it could be a social media channel, it could be anywhere on the web that you want them to go, and send them straight there through that link. It allows you to track that as well through the insights, which is really good for seeing how these stories are doing. And it's a fantastic tool to use. Basically, if you're not using it, you're going to be missing out on a world of traffic. So make sure that you are using it to the best of your ability, and sharing it on Instagram is the best way to do. For it's kind of that extra bit of content, because you can do these on Facebook now. They don't have the same effect as Instagram because these appear at the top of Instagram. So when everyone's scrolled through a load, then they'll start reading all the stories, and that's where you want to be constantly appearing at the top. So if you're not using stories yet, please make sure you are. On to the next one, please, Dave.
I'm just going to chime in. You keep saying on to the next one. I'm like,
I'm sorry.
I want to say something. I was just doing a story, actually. Yeah, Lisa's absolutely spot on about using stories more than the posts once a day, if you can, stories throughout the day. But I wanted to emphasize the be more authentic point, because on previous Lunch and Learns, we've emphasized this. This is something we're seeing a lot of at the moment with the app Be Real, which I'm not part of, some of the girls in the office are, TikTok, Instagram stories in general. We're starting to see a need for people to be a little bit more authentic, a little bit less filtered, and Instagram stories allow for that a little bit more so than your feed might. On your feed, you want it to be absolutely top quality content, exceptional content, but the stories can be a little bit lesser. Obviously, there needs to be some thought put into that, but it's an opportunity for you guys to be a little bit more authentic and come across as human beings. At the end of the day, yes, you're running a brand, but the stories will enable people to see the people behind the brand. So I'd really recommend, if you're not using stories and you're just sharing posts all the time, the key thing here is start using stories daily, 2, 3, 4 times a day. We're going to come on to later on about how you can create exceptional content. And in fact, we've got our next Lunch and Learn is going to be around that, so we'll come on to that shortly. But we're going to probably share a few tips with you around how you can create exceptional content, whether it's on stories or on the feed, because that's what a lot of people struggle with. As an agency, we get 2 types of business get in touch with us. They either haven't got the time to do it themselves, in which case, right, that's us, or they don't know what to put. They're not creative, in which case there's potential that we can push them in the right direction without using us. So we'll share some tips shortly as to how you can be a little bit more creative and think about the kind of things to go on your story and your feed. But yeah, I just want to emphasize the authentic side of things.
We just had a question that would say, would you suggest sharing the post on the story feed too? And I absolutely would. It's anything that can give you that extra piece of content, use it. It could be that someone's tagged you in, it could be someone's used your hashtag, and it could be it could be your post that you want to share. Anything that you can use to create extra content. So every time you post, it's a great way to say, share to story, and then you can blow it up a little bit, maybe add a caption or not, and then just put new post. Have you seen this? Have you seen, talk about the post that you're sharing and get it out there. It's, as I say, it's a great extra piece of content, and definitely utilize what is available to you because it's there for a reason.
One of the things we're going to address later on as well is about, as I said, creating exceptional content, but consistent exceptional content. But I want to talk very briefly, and Lisa, I expect Lisa to kind of chime in here about creating consistent stories, because that's absolutely key as well, because there are certain elements on stories, fonts, colors, that need to be consistent with your brand. So I'm just going to pull up on screen a couple. So these are two that we put out on our Instagram feed on 146 yesterday. Now spot the error, by the way, I spotted that earlier. But what you can see here is a consistent font for starters, and then consistent colors. So we either use the white on black, or we use the red on the almost pink whitish background with the curved edges. That's the kind of font and colors we use, because we're well, our branding, you see in the background here, there's a spot here, we're red spots, white background, blacks. So it's those three kind of key colors, but we use that kind of light pink because within Instagram it just works, and we use that consistently across everything we do, kind of combination of the two. But how, Lisa, from your perspective, how important is that consistency, not just on the feed, we'll come onto the feed shortly, but within stories?
Yeah, so it's important to have that brand going through. So if you think about the fonts that you have, try and see if there's one that matches up, like Dave says, because although this isn't our font we would use, say, on our website or for our marketing, it matches the closest. There's about 6 or 7 fonts within Instagram, but also you've got things like Canva and Illustrator at your disposal. So if you can find your fonts within Canva, and you can upload some of them as well, maybe see if you can create some templates within Canva, so that at least you can keep that brand recognition going through, so that when people do see your story at the top of their profile and they click on it, they start to remember, and it starts to sink in their mind that, oh yeah, I know who I'm looking at now, because their branding is consistent. You don't need to put your logo on everything. You just need to keep that slight recognition, that color drop here and there. It allows people to start remembering who you are. And obviously at the top of Instagram, it doesn't show it here because there are images, but at the top there would be the profile name. So you don't have to go crazy on adding branding. Branding doesn't mean just putting logos on everything. It just means having those little droplets here and there that will start to help people remember who you are and how important it is for people to recognize you.
Let's remember that point on branding when it comes to creating posts for the actual feed as well. I want to come back to that, but we'll move on. We'll move on shortly. We'll move on now. Sorry, not shortly. Mixing my words. There we go. Over to interaction, not engagement. Lisa.
So this is thinking about how you can take your brand, running the brand and getting people to interact with you. So obviously we all know that Instagram is notoriously hard for the engagement side of things. You can feel like one week you've got to post every day, the next week you've got to create reels all the time. That's all Instagram wants. And now I think we're starting to hear that Instagram's preferring posts again, and it's impossible to keep up. The best thing you can do, as I said earlier, is to keep consistent and just keep on your plan. So whether that's you're posting every day, stick with that and add in a reel here and there. Or if you want to do reels every day and then you decide to do posts, make that work for your plan. But when it comes to the interaction, you want to have a think about, have you got your key people being targeted, and start talking to them, start interacting with them, follow them, interact with their content, and then start taking some conversations to the DMs. Don't approach them cold if it seems wrong, but start having a look at how you can actually start commenting and talking to them. For example, with some of our clients, we've got a go-karting company that we work with. So a lot of their comments that they get are from, racers or people interested in events coming up, and they'll comment and say, when's the next race, or is the track ready for this? And it's important to reply to all of those comments. You can have a laugh, you can have fun, or you can have the opportunity to just answer like however you need to. But just responding and having the interaction, one, puts a human behind it. You don't have to, you always reply as the brand, but it starts to add that personal touch back, because it's so easy to just schedule, off it goes, and ignore the profile. But as long as you've got the access to the phone or the profile, because you can do it on desktop now, have a few moments where you can comment and actually start speaking to people. And you might think, well, I've got no comments to reply to. Ooh, then head to some brands and have a look at other people that you can start commenting on. If you're local to Northamptonshire, which I imagine quite a few of you are, you could start having a look at other brands, such as maybe the Northampton Bid, Northants Life. Have a look at those local businesses and corporations and companies that are around, where you can add a comment. And it doesn't have to seem what's the word? Is it disingenuous? I always get that word wrong, but don't make it seem false. Don't just say, love this content, because that's just not going to help you in the long run. Have a think about how you can actually add a positive comment and some commentary to things, because it will start to help you get noticed because you're commenting on other people's content, but also start to build those relationships, because you never know who you'll meet later. And you might find that you've been speaking to the person who runs the bids Instagram, and suddenly you're talking about something else that can be useful later. It's a bit like networking, it's just online. So have a think about how you can start interacting with people a bit more and taking conversations to the DMs. Start making sure that you're replying to everything and taking conversations to other businesses as well. There's no harm in talking on other profiles. It's actually going to help your engagement, not just hinder it. Anything to add, Dave?
Yeah, I think one of the key things here is the algorithm. The algorithm loves it when you interact with people, and we have on previous Lunch and Learns, whenever we speak to customers in blogs, we have talked about trying to generate engagement, and this is becoming incredibly difficult to do across all socials, more specifically Facebook. Very difficult to generate any kind of engagement, but that's always been the buzzword, and I want to almost shift people away from that buzzword of engagement, because interaction covers engagement, but also that engagement back from you. And Lisa's spot on with what she's saying, but it's not just about if you get questions in, it's any comment. If you get any comment in, comment back, because the algorithm absolutely loves it. And if the algorithm loves it, they're going to show you more to more people, to those people, to other people. You're going to start appearing more. You're going to start to see engagement increase over time, reach of your post increase over time, impressions of your post increase over time, which again is in turn going to see you add new followers over time as well. So interaction is absolutely key, not just engagement. Yes, you want to be creating content that is going to get engaged. That's the first step. But you then need to interact back to people. And we use that word interaction rather than engagement because it covers both aspects. And just to re-emphasize what Lisa's mentioned about going over to other businesses' profiles, highlight 5, 10, 15, it might be one other profile, potentially in your industry, but potentially within your location, that you can start to interact with as well. These are businesses you might see on your feed, and start to interact with them, because if other people start seeing you on their feed through another party, through another Instagram profile, they're more likely to again interact with you or follow you. And again, those businesses you're interacting with, again, they might follow you. So start to kind of highlight some other profiles. If you're not getting the engagement on your content, then you probably need to think about how can we create better content for starters, but also start to engage with other profiles as well.
Fabulous. So on to analytics, and I briefly mentioned this earlier about your insights. I think it's called insights or analytics on Instagram. They will change. All mean the same thing though. And this is crucial to making sure that the content you're putting out is actually doing something. Because if you're just posting daily, weekly, whatever it is, for the sake of it, because you know you want to use Instagram, have a look at actually what it's doing. Because if you go into your insights, analytics, whatever it's called, you can see how your stories are performing, how your reels are performing, and how the grid posts are doing. Within this, you can see quite a lot. You can see things like the reach. You can see how many people have liked it, commented, saved it. Saves are very important because saves really work with the engagement algorithm, and they're quite important because if you've made a piece of content that people have actually saved for later, whether they go back to it or not, it's a piece of content that actually means it's quite useful. It means people have actually gone, I like that, I'm gonna continue to go back to that. Whether they do or don't, I do it a lot on TikTok. I save a lot of things and never go back to them, but in my head it's like, I like that, I want to remember that. And that's what you want to do. You want to create content that people actually take something from. You don't just want to post. I mean, I see it a lot. People post photos with a caption about something to do with their location. I've seen it recently where people say, we've got offices here, there and everywhere, and it's just a picture of their logo. And it was like, well, what's a logo going to do? Because if a picture speaks 1,000 words, I've said this for ages, well, how's a picture of your logo going to help connect to the caption? The best thing you can do is have actual photographs. So the analytics will help you see how things are performing. And actually you can go through quite far. You can go, right back in your archives. You can see how things used to do. If you found last year that your stories were doing amazingly and you stopped doing them now, well, then you can see that the actual results are there. You could see the link click as well, and you can start to see how many people are clicking on them. So using your analytics as a brand, you need to react to what's working. And that never means just duplicating the same post again. Never do that on Instagram. With Facebook, you can kind of get away with it. Wouldn't recommend it, but you could, because your feed isn't, people have to really scroll back. But with Instagram, you don't want to see the same post again. It's obvious. It's like a mosaic, but so you want to see different photos when you scroll through, because people will scroll back in your profile, especially if you're the kind of business or service where there are products involved. People want to see what you've done before, or maybe if there's a portfolio, they want to see previous examples of work. They want to see people, they want to see, examples of who they're going to be working with, and just good content. I hate to say it, you will see the best pieces of content and go, right, I want to do more of that. How do I do it? Well, have a look at what it is. If it's an actually really decent photo, do more of that. If it's a funny piece of content, don't try and be funny, because that can not look funny, but just think about those examples that you might already have in your phone that then you can use going forward. Not every piece of content has to be something you took this day. It's really important to look at your analytics, and I don't think enough people do it because they don't see how things are performing. And even, I can admit that last week I didn't look at something, how a reel had gone out that I put on Northants Life. Turned out it had 10,000 views, and I just hadn't noticed because I put it out, carried on with the next thing, and hadn't actually seen that it had reached 10,000 people. I was able to give that information to the client, and they were really, really impressed. And you could see the commentary, you could see people asking questions, and we were able to respond to those. So don't miss out on those opportunities. And if you've reached really well on that, you think, right, how can I do more of that? What is that the content people are after? Let's do more of it. It's really, really easy to just keep posting and thinking, well, why is no one posting? We're doing this. Have a look at what actually used to work and do more of it. And I know the algorithms change as we go, but maybe something you did in 2020 would actually do really well now. So have a good look in there, go back, do some analyzing of how things have done, because it is really important. And you probably do it for your website, but you're not doing it for your Instagram. And I think it's a really missed tool that people should take advantage of.
Can we cover off, I think that leads us on to a question we got asked. So when people sign up, we give people the opportunity to ask a question should they have one. I'm not sure whether this person's on the call. I won't name them, and I'll skirt around the kind of business name and stuff, but we were asked a question. Insta used to be a great channel to share our work, and it helps generate new business. They're quite a visual business, this company, but now engagement is practically nothing, and the channel feels fiercely competitive and very much like a beauty parade. Competitors, I feel, aren't authentic. They're just good at posting content, usually not theirs, and then go on to win the engagement battle. How do we stand out, get more engagement, but still remain authentic? So the reason I'm putting this into this slide is we had a look at this person's profile just before Lunch and Learn. And there's a couple of different takes on this, but we actually noticed that some of their older posts were doing really well because they were more visual. Would you agree, Lisa? A little bit more visual?
Yeah, so what I found with it was that the content was actually just nicer to look at. And it's about, as I said earlier, it's about how people approach the profile. So the first thing I noticed, and I hope they don't mind saying, is that there was a lot of duplicate content. So when I first landed on the profile, the first couple of images looked very similar. And what you want to do is see lots of variations, because not everyone's going to love everything. So if there's lots of different types of content, it allows it to look different. Whether the content is actually quite similar in its own right, that's fine. But how it appears on the grid is very important, because it's that first initial contact. And if it looks a bit messy, it looks a bit random or less, I guess, like photographically aesthetic. The aesthetic word is something that's being used a lot, especially on TikTok at the minute. You can get an aesthetic for everything, and it's that similar thing of saying, like, people aren't posting authentic things. I hate to say it, the aesthetic is what people want. People want to see pretty things. We all like things that look nice. So try and think about how your profile actually looks to the viewer, because if it has lots of, because obviously it's in rows of 3, if the first 3 images are quite similar, then it's not going to look as appealing to someone who wants to see a bit of variety, especially with Instagram. You don't want to be posting the same content all the time. So what I found with this, the person who had sent in the question, I actually looked back and I loved the content from however many weeks, months ago it was. And I was like, do more of that, because that looks brilliant. It actually shows what it is that you do. Whereas the other stuff just was just not hitting the mark, because it wasn't as visual, it wasn't as aesthetically pleasing. And I think it's doing more of what works. And it's easy to say it's the algorithm battle, but we just want to, it is a battle, and you've sometimes got to run at it and try it and do a bit of what a competitor's doing, because sometimes it's good to analyze what a competitor's doing, take a little snippet from each one, look at what they're doing badly as well and not do that, and have a look at it. Because sometimes it's easy to think our competitors are doing better. Are they just posting more as well? Because it's so easy to think that someone who can post 10 times a day on stories, post every day, that's perfectly polished, but are they actually doing better, or are they just posting more on social media? And that's always something you need to keep in mind. So if you want to appear that way, essentially, you want to look like your business is flourishing, you're posting all the time, you've got all these things to say, because then people will buy from you, because it looks like there's lots going on. You look desirable. If you say nothing, then it looks like you might not be there, you might not be a live business. The amount of times I've gone on Instagram and actually looked, the last time they posted was 2020 or whatever, there's no one to contact. So it's keeping that live feed and keeping it looking nice that will really help. Might have gone on a little tangent there, but I think it's all encompassing on making sure that as a brand you look like the best brand, because people will buy from you. It's as simple as that.
I think that's absolutely spot on, yeah. And I think pulling it back into the analytics, if this particular business, this particular person had utilised their analytics, they'd have seen what was and wasn't working, and they'd have quite easily, because we can't see their analytics, but we did a quick nosy through, and we could see a lack of engagement on the latest post, which were a bit more graphical, samey. And a lot more engagement on the previous posts, which were more beautiful, considered from a photographical perspective. We could see a lot more engagement there. If they'd have looked back at the analytics, and this is why analytics is crucial, they could see what had and hadn't worked. Now, there is an argument to say you need a little bit of consistency in posts. Go with what's worked, but also you need a bit of variety as well, because if you use the same thing over and over again, it won't necessarily work as well. So utilize analytics and find out what is and isn't working. It is really, really important, and it takes you 2 seconds to log on to the insights. We started to skip over a little bit there about what your competitors are doing, and I'll take this one on, Lisa, and come to you in a sec. But I go on about this all the time. So as I said earlier, we get 2 types of people approach us whenever they want us to manage their social media. It's either someone who hasn't got the time, in which case, we'll go straight in, we'll crack on. Or it's someone who doesn't know what to post. They're not creative enough. And the very first thing I say is, right, what are your competitors doing? And this is not a case of copying. The very first thing we do whenever we take on a client, we put together a multi-page document talking about our strategy around those social platforms. And one of the things within that is a competitor analysis. And it sounds really complicated, but all it is just us highlighting some of the key competitors. And that's where you guys come in. We talk to you and we say, who are your key competitors? We might highlight a couple as well. And we look at what they're doing, whether it be good or bad. And if they're doing something good, we document it. We note down, right, these guys are doing this in this kind of style. It's working for them, and they're getting this kind of engagement. You have to always think within the context. They might have 3 times the amount of followers. So of course they'll get more engagement. But the key thing is, we always do that. We always ask our clients to do that if they're not sure what to post. Look at what your competitors are doing and find out what is working, and then start to break it down into individual kind of more bite-sized topics. And that's where you can kind of think, and this kind of brings us on to our next thing, which is all about creating consistent, exceptional content. This is where the ideas start to flow. If you're struggling with engagement, reach, you're struggling with what to post, have a look at what your competitors are doing. Don't copy them, but they will give you a great insight into what works. Agree, Lisa?
Yeah, nothing more to add, really. I think it's simple. You just got to analyze what they're doing and not be bitter about it. If they're doing something that really works and you're thinking, well, what are they doing that we're not doing? just look at the little things you can tweak. It might be taking photos with a different camera and making sure that the pictures are absolutely the best quality. It might be utilizing a different template. It's just simple things that can be tweaks that really show off the brand in the best way, because as I say, it's your branding. It's not the logos, it's not the colors. You are the brand, your people are the brand, and you want them to come across in the best light as well. I mean, I even joked with Dave earlier, and this probably goes into the exceptional content area as well. I joked and said, make sure you don't have your video pointing down, you know, make yourself look better by pointing it up.
It looks better pointing down.
But you know what I mean? You can have a think about how things look and how you come across, because you want to look the best you can be.
Yeah, spot on. And if your competitors are doing something you don't necessarily agree with or don't particularly want to do, then obviously that's your prerogative. But they're probably, if they're generating that level of engagement and it's working for them, it's working for a reason. Doesn't mean that you can't be different, and it doesn't mean that being different won't work as well, but just take it into account. You know, it might not be what you want to see, but it might be what the users and the followers want to see. Right, coming on to creating consistent, exceptional content. And there's two key kind of buzzwords here: consistency and creating exceptional content. Now, that's what we do. You know, we going back to one of our clients that Lisa mentioned earlier, we work with it's an outdoor activity centre, but it's very much focused on go-karting. Wilton Mill on the edge of Northamptonshire. We do all their content. So we're over there once every quarter. We're jumping into carts, we're filming stuff, we're taking pictures, we're doing everything. We're creating consistent, exceptional content. But it's quite difficult to create consistent content. How can we do that? Maybe a couple of tips, Lisa. We've got a lunch and learn that's going to come up over the next month around this. But also, how do we make it how do we make it exceptional? How do we make it better than what other people are doing? Because that's key as well.
So this is something I'm quite passionate about, and I feel like the first tip is the simplest tip I can give anyone, and I give it every time I do one of these, because if you've got a phone, clean the lens for a start, because it sits in your back pocket, you put your fingers all over it, it gets smudged, it's not great. It's a simple, stupid tip, but I can tell you there's a big difference. Take a photo now versus once you clean it, you'll see a difference. Silly things like that can make a big difference to how you take it. With an iPhone, I have it, so I don't know if you're not really going to be able to see this, I don't think. Basically, I have the grid line set up. It's within your settings. I'm not going to be able to remember from the top of my head how to do it. It's within the iPhone settings. And if you Google it, you'll be able to find it easy. It allows you to have the 3 lines going that way and that way. This is great for your composition of your images. And this is a really simple tip. I'm sure in the next Lunch and Learn we'll go into it further. But have a look at how you can actually think about the composition of an image. Because if you were taking a photo, or hold on, the window as an example, you want to make sure that you're sitting your photos in the best lines. If you're taking a photo of my head, which isn't really going to work too well, you don't want just like that side. You don't want it just face on. I'm not going to be able to show this too well. You don't want it just face on. You want it to be sitting within those lines. And have a look at composition on Google. I'm not going to go into it completely today, but have a look at the composition. Learn how to use your iPhone or your Android, whichever way you lean, towards thinking about the composition, because it will make a big difference. Even if you're taking a picture of a cup of coffee or you're taking a picture of a person, everything should sit nicely within these lines. It's something that a lot of people don't think about, and they just take a photo and just post it. And it will make a big difference to how people react to your images, because you want to create an image that looks nice and people go like that, double tap it, off they go. The caption is almost, it's an added extra if you think about it, because the picture should sell what it is that you do, and the content is the added extra that tells you a little bit more information. Don't be writing essays, because no one's going to read them. It's Instagram, it's not LinkedIn. And have a think about how you can actually make really decent photos. If your camera isn't up to scratch for whatever reason, as in your phone camera, have a look at using an actual camera. I know it feels like old school to use those now, but there's a massive difference between using a proper camera. I mean, I use a small point and shoot that's actually as good as an SLR at times. People go, why have you got a point and shoot? It's a bit old school. It takes a damn good photo. A lot of us have equipment these days that we don't realize that we can make use of. Simple things as well, like a photo box light. You could buy one of those if you're going to do some videos with your team, and making sure that the lighting's really nice, not just using sort of the office lights above you. Little things will make a big difference. And the thing that I notice most whenever we do any content and competitor analysis is that the things that make the difference are the high quality bits. It will be the photographs, it will be how things are laid out. It won't just be posting for the sake of it. And sometimes clients will send us content that they've taken, and I'll just say I'm not using that image because it's not good enough. And as hard as that is, it's important to make sure that the content is good. And Instagram started off as a photo sharing platform. It used to be obviously not business led. There was never those adverts and all the things that we've got now, like influencers. But as much as we might like or dislike an influencer, they get likes because their pictures are pretty. They might be pretty too, but their pictures that they take in a nice glamorous location are pretty. And so you can take that element and make sure that what you're taking is good, because it can be silly things like making sure that the picture behind you hasn't got a rubbish bin behind it, clutter on the desk, silly little things that make a big difference between yourself and your competitor. And when you're running a brand, you want to make sure that you look the best. I've said it a few times already, but you need to sell yourself as a different type of business, because it's a competitive world. Instagram is fiercely competitive now. There are so many businesses for so many different things. You'll find a business for everything on there. And so many, especially B2Bs, have often said, oh, well, like, how do I do, if you're an accountant or solicitor, how am I meant to share that? Well, I can tell you there are people who literally run an accountancy just because they have an Instagram account, if that makes sense. So have a look and find those people that aren't local to you and have a look at what they're doing, because I can tell you it will be the good content that makes a difference. And I don't want to just see quotes or word art, which is where you use words instead of a photo. Try and use photos. It makes a massive difference for your engagement rate. I've said it to people, and I've probably offended people before when I've said don't use, quotes as in like something that someone said from ye old times. No one cares about those as much as they want to see the things that you do, the things that you sell, the people behind the business, and what it is that makes the business up. This will go into a whole nother lunch and learn, because there's so much to say on it. But I think I've emphasized the point enough that you have to take the best image you can, and if it's not good enough, you shouldn't be sharing it. Stories are different. I'm not saying share rubbish on there, like I said before, but make sure that looks good. Make sure it's always in portrait. And if you upload a video to Instagram as a post, make sure it's always in portrait and stretched out to the size it needs to be. If you upload it as a square, it will have a black box at the top of the image and it will look rubbish. It will look like you didn't get it right. And that's not what you want to achieve. You always want to make sure that what you're putting out is right. And Canva, MacBooks have all these tools on. Windows, I'm guessing, still does have Windows Movie Maker or whatever it has these days. You can tell I'm an Apple girl. It just makes a big difference to get these things right, because it will help your business shine above a competitor.
If I was to give a couple of tips around those two kind of keywords, consistency, exceptional content, the first thing I would say is give yourself time to actually plan and schedule stuff. There's so many people that do things off the cuff, and that's not necessarily a bad thing every so often. But give yourself that time, Monday morning, Tuesday morning, to plan and actually schedule. There's loads of scheduling tools out there. We'll go into stuff like that on our next Lunch and Learn, to actually schedule content. One of the other things you can do is change your mindset, and every time you're in the office or in work mode, always think back to, is there some content that I can take here? Take it, store it away, and when you go through to plan and schedule stuff, you've then got a photo bank, a video bank to actually go with. Yes, you can use them for stories there and then, but you can also use it for posts further down the line. The other thing I would say is experiment. It's about creating exceptional content. So play around with angles. I don't like filters. I don't know whether Lisa does. Just experiment with things. Experiment with angles. Experiment with how things look. Maybe try a DSLR as opposed to an actual, mobile phone camera. iPhone cameras are brilliant though. So are other cameras. But just play around with things and try things. That's what marketing as a whole is, trying things. But before it goes out, just make sure it looks bloody good. We've got a couple of questions here. Is there any truth behind posting stories for better engagement at certain times of the day or particular days, i.e. between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m.? Now, my thoughts on this, Lisa might go against this, so we'll see. My thoughts on this is it's not going to be the same for every business. There's going to be some businesses that are more active, where their target audience are more active at different times. So there's no kind of hard and fast rule, Lisa?
You can actually find this information out in a way. So
There you
you
go.
can find out what works for your business on the insight. So like I said before, go into your analytics. I think it's still there. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure you used to be able to see when your followers were online at the most times. There's like a little graph that appears and basically says like the most active times of the day. Obviously that's more for the profile, but think of it's probably going to be similar for stories. So have a little look, because you might find that you might have people online more at say 6 o'clock. But that's the thing, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Like if you said something like that, you could think, well, that's a working day. So if you're a B2B business, you might want to think about those kind of times. But because there's a 24-hour limit on every story, it doesn't really matter when you post, because it will last 24 hours. So people will see it when they get chance, if that makes sense. With posts, I would suggest posting it between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. But that's just it's an idea. You have to post what works best for you, but I tend to schedule a lot of our content for around the 8 a.m. 9 a.m. time. But then if it's more food led, for example, I might post it at 12. So there might be things that you might think are more relevant for certain time frames. It might be that you have a service that works, you might want to provoke a question and say, I don't know, if you're in recruitment, you could say at 4 p.m, have you got that end of the afternoon slump? And then you can post that then, and you might get those people that are sitting bored on their phone, if that makes sense. So have a think about what works best for your company, because it's all going to be different, really.
Key thing I say with marketing, generally test and measure. Put something out there, try different times, and use analytics to measure it. Simple. Right, we're gonna.
We've got one more question.
Oh, we have got one more question, and if you don't mind, I'll come over to you in a sec, Lisa, but I'll tackle this because paid ads is my thing. We do a lot of paid ads here, and I'm very keen to push on to people that they should be having a budget for paid ads in some form. Now, it comes in two forms. It comes in essentially boosting posts that you've already put out, and it comes in creating well-targeted, well thought through, strategized ads that have kind of a different purpose, a specific purpose. Is it worth paying for post stories and reels though? That's an interesting one. Again, test and measure, see if it gets you more reach. Instagram and Facebook will always starve your reach to a point, especially Facebook. So I would always say have a budget aside just to boost things, especially if you're not getting seen much. If you're getting seen loads and you're getting engaged with a lot, then you probably don't need to. But otherwise, play around with it, see how it works. If you're not getting seen much, you're not getting engaged with much, try it. A couple of quid here or there might make a massive difference. Lisa, any thoughts on that? Cool. Yes, she agreed. Right, moving on to find a way to integrate your brand. And I mentioned something earlier, Lisa, about the branding side of things on posts. You said about you don't have to put your logo everywhere. One of the things I want to mention on this was, especially on posts, we see a lot of people put their logo on posts. Don't do it. Don't do it. They're on your profile. They can see your logo at the top above the post. I personally don't do it. My other thoughts on this I mentioned earlier, around using consistent fonts and colors on stories, but I think it goes a little bit further than that, because there is a certain way you want your image, your content to look. There's a certain, Izzy will love this word, there's a certain vibe. So try and have a little bit of consistency in the way your feed, your images, your content actually looks. What are your thoughts, Lisa?
Yeah, so as I said before, how your profile is your biggest way to kind of make your brand look the best it can be. But your stories need to mirror that as well. But also make sure that your branding is consistent across all the platforms you use, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn and Twitter, and even TikTok. Because if you're creating, I don't know, loads of dancing videos over on TikTok, but nothing is being, and I wouldn't suggest just posting it for the sake of it on each platform, because it probably won't make the same impact. They do kind of talk to each other in a way, but make sure that what you're doing as a brand all marries up together. If you look at sort of suggested clothing brands, because it's the easiest one to kind of think of, you can tend to see, I don't know, Marks and Spencer's. It will always look the same across every platform, but it won't always be the same content. So what you want to do is make sure that if your Facebook page is sharing links to products all the time, then your Instagram is showing some nice imagery of said products in a nice way. They might be different to how it is on Facebook. It's just thinking about how you can bring it all around as a circle to make sure that it all works nicely. And yeah, as Dave said, making sure things like the stories all marry up nicely, not you plastering your logo over everything you can possibly put it on, because your brand, I feel like this needs to be emphasized a lot. Branding is as much what you do as well as your colors and your logo. Your brand should speak nicely, it should come across well, and it should mirror what you want to be seen as.
Right, before we nip on to the final slide, we've got a couple of minutes left, guys. We might overrun by a minute or two, so feel free if you need to go. But Lee has put his hand up, so I'm going to allow you to talk, Lee. We've never done this before, so keep it clean. Lee, you're allowed to talk if you want to. You put your hand up. If it was a mistake, we can move on. Might just be waving. Right, okay, so we're going to move on to the final slide. We've got a couple of minutes, Lisa, so it's all about be present and respond to your community.
So this carries on from what I just said. Talking to your community is really important. So your Instagram isn't just another social channel. You need to actually be present. And if you think about how it kind of still exists, but in a way, Twitter used to be the place we go to comment and complain. If you can kind of guarantee if you go on Twitter, you can complain to the company you need to complain to and get a response in DMs. You need to think of that almost similarly with Instagram, because that's where it's moving to. And it shouldn't always be about complaints, it should be about all questions. If you think about a cafe or a place to go, you probably can go on there and ask some questions and book it on. I've booked loads of dinners for places in Instagram DMs. You should be present on there. So it shouldn't just be something you've got scheduled and haven't got access to on your phone, or someone should be delegated for that role, because it should be that you are able to respond to any messages within a time frame. You can set up auto responders, which are within the app or Facebook, that they can marry up together. And you can put an auto respond that says, thanks for your message, we'll be back in touch within 24, 48 hours, whatever you want it to be. If you need to get in touch with us sooner, here's how you do so. And you can keep it as an email or a phone number, and make it so that it's really easy for people to get in touch with you. If you think about it, people love a DM, it makes it easy. It's just quicker. It's not necessarily always about like people wanting to pick up the phone, because half the time you just want a quick answer and you just want to deal with it when you can. So just have a think about how you can make all these questions so simple for people, and being present when you do get those messages, because as I say, it's really obvious to spot the companies that just schedule and leave versus the ones that actually respond to stuff. And even the other day, I shared a reel on my personal page about a hotel, and then they messaged saying, could we share it on our page? That's what you want to get to. You want to get to the point where people are actually talking to you, or that you can approach them on content. So have a think about how you can actually be more present, set up those autoresponders, make sure that everything's lined up nicely so that you can just be the most active you can be on the page, and that you can create your own little community within that page. And maybe it might be that you've got your own little hashtag that you can all follow along and talk about. It's all those little things that will add up to make it seem like you've got that community, and that you're, I like to use the word like a community manager. You get those on Facebook a lot now, especially with the bigger brands. Have a think about how you can be that person, that advocate for the business, to make sure that everyone knows who you are.
Thanks, Lisa. Right, we're going to call it there. Thank you so much to everyone that attended. Next month, it's the 30th of March. I think it's a bit of a later one. We're going to be talking about planning and creating exceptional social content. And it's going to be part one. We're going to do 2 parts because we think there's so much to go through. So you will get an email which will invite you onto it. Please attend. If you love what you've seen today, please attend. You can see from today, we just give back solid advice. If you want to find out a little bit more about what we do and whether you want to work with us, please visit the website and get in touch. But Lunch and Learn is all about giving back to you guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. We've had most people stay on, which is fantastic. It's really good to see. So thank you everyone for attending. We're probably about 2 minutes over. And Izzy, thank you. Sabrina, thank you for the lovely comments. We'll let you shoot off. And as I said, get in touch if you need any additional help. We're here, and hopefully see you on the next Lunch and Learn. Take care, guys.